Welcome to the Holy Donors Podcast. Join Andrew, Matt, Ren, and me, Thaddeus, as every week we bring you inspiring stories of radical generosity that have changed the world. So Andrew, you ready to get started?
Can't wait. So let's ask the question, was he a holy donor, right? This is an interesting one because we talked next to nothing about his philanthropy, right? He had the bishop's game that he endorsed, but he didn't really give to. One thing I didn't mention was that he, later in his life, his speaking fee was $5,000 typically, and over half the time he would just donate it to charity. He didn't even take it. And as a daily mass communicant, he had to have given to St. Willibrord's. We just don't have a record of that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I even went to the website and see if there's anything named after him. There's not. So, don't know any of that. But really what we're asking, I think, in this season is the question of, is radical generosity investment, is a time that he invested in his players and the men around him enough of a show of radical generosity? So I don't know. That prefacing it all with that, Matt, you want to start?
Yeah, real quick, just a question. The Lombardi Foundation, that wasn't started by Vince Lombardi. That was started by players after his death.
That's correct.
In his name.
That's correct. So that is a foundation that funds cancer research. Bart Starr, his star quarterback, was one of the lead donors. We assume that some of the family gave to that as well, but don't know for sure that. But yeah, that was not something that Vince started himself.
Sure. Well, we focus on faithfulness, humility, and radical generosity. So I will go with faithfulness first, and I'll quickly say that for a man similar to the four of us in this room, living a life with a family, having a profession, a vocation outside of priesthood, he was a very faithful man, daily mass goer, I'm sure Sunday mass goer, and his faith was a part of his life. I mean, shoot, he even had a steering wheel made with a rosary in it so that he could pray while he was driving. So I'm going to give him the full credit for faithfulness. I think he wasn't St. Francis,
right?
But he didn't have that opportunity to be St. Francis. He had to live in the world and of the world and around the world. So knowing that, I'm going to handicap that a little bit and say, okay, he gets the fullness for that. Humility, that's a hard one. Mm-hmm. I think at times, he was a very humble man, but then at times he got a taste of, as we talked about, power and whatnot, and almost got addicted to winning and being on top and would not accept anything less. And when you look at humility, that's kind of the opposite of what humility is. So I'm going to rate that one quite a bit lower. He's probably somewhere around a 4 for that.
Okay.
And then as far as a donor goes, there's, as we just discussed, there's not a whole lot of data that goes toward how much of a donor he was. But again, I want to go back to, okay, so there's these two parts. There's financial donor and there's radical generosity of human being. I think what he did for his players and for those under his tutelage, not his family, but those on his team, I think he really knocked it out of the park for them. I mean, I think there's no doubt about that. If we can call that radical generosity, I'd give him a 10 out of 10 for that. If it's got to be financial in stature or in kind in stature, that's a harder one because I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think we could give him a 2 on that because there's this part of him giving himself to his players. I think that carries some weight. So I'm going to give him a 7 on the radical generosity side because I think there's this in-kind piece. So I see you doing the math in your head. If you want to continue doing the math,
10 and 4 and 7 is 21 divided by 3, 7.
7. So I'm going to give him a 7 from that, and I think a lot of it comes from this thought of this in-kind gift of, was his generosity, what he gave, did it change the world? And if we can say that a portion of a human's life, it can be transferred into a financial value that can then be translated into changing the world, that's where I'm at.
So 7 says yes, holy donor.
7 says Yes, holy donor. Yep.
Okay. Well, you had to grit your teeth and
No, this one is complex. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
it's not a simple one. I mean, quickly, if there was just a slight change in rules, the donor side of holy can probably go out the door pretty quickly. But I think how we've set that for us. I mean, it's not ultimately for us to decide; it's for the audience to decide. But for me personally, that's where I'm at.
All right, let's hear from Thaddeus and see if that sways any of your ideas.
There's so much that I have rattling around in my head. First of all, we're looking at Vince Lombardi in 2023, and he lived through the 20th century. And he has an entire biography written by a great biographer who went to great lengths to dig out all the details of his life. So the point I'm getting at there is that Mr. Lombardi he's at a little bit of a disadvantage against some of the other subjects that we've taken on who we know less about their personal life, their interior life, and all the messiness of their lives. So we have faithfulness, we have humility, we have radical generosity, or the donor piece. And I think looking at radical generosity first, I think if we were a podcast that was about, maybe was taking a look at great coaches or great athletic figures through the ages and kind of measuring them not only as exemplars of their sport, but also as exemplars of people generally, as people. Character. Yeah. I think we could give him high marks for radical generosity and kind of pouring himself out into his players and really making a difference in his players' lives and making them be all that they could be. But we're not that show.
Right.
We're very explicitly looking at things through a Catholic lens. And although he did do that for his players, and he was this very admirable voice of equality during the civil rights era, there's more to radical generosity than just that. And we can't let the priorities of the world take precedence over the principles of our faith, and we have to let those shine through. So what I see there in the radical generosity piece is a man who he neglected his vocation to his wife and his children in order to do that for these adult men who didn't necessarily need a father the same way that maybe his children did and Marie. And this is all also, like I said earlier, we do have to take into account he's a man of his times. There was much more of an attitude in that mid-century America of men are men and women are women, and there are certain, very defined roles within typical middle-class households of this is what the father does and this is what the wife does. But St. Paul says that the husband is supposed to be the servant of, I'm sorry, I'm going on here, the servant of he's supposed to love his wife the way Christ loved the church. That's how Christ loved the church. He hung on a cross. He died to himself. So Vince Lombardi, I don't know, I not to take away what he did as a coach, and there's a lot that I admire about him as a coach, and I think your explanation of his winning is the only thing is beautiful. 2 or 3 coins.
Okay.
Humility, I think you said it really well. His ego, his desire to win, his desire to be the best, everything that he sacrificed things that he shouldn't have sacrificed. He made sacrifices he shouldn't have made. Again, going back to his vocation of marriage. This is a very flawed man who's judging this other man, by the way. That's another hard thing about these things. Humility. The Second Vatican Council, Lumen Gentium, when it defines this idea of the universal call to holiness, it says, the classes and duties of life are many, but holiness is one, that sanctity which is cultivated by all who are moved by the Spirit of God and who obey the voice of the Father and worship God the Father in spirit and in truth. These people follow the poor Christ, the humble and cross-bearing Christ, in order to be worthy of being sharers in his glory. I don't know. I'm not sure I think a 4.
Okay.
So we're at 6 coins or 60 cents. And then finally, faithfulness. I don't know. I listened to Vince Lombardi's story, and you did such a great job of presenting it. I don't know if I'm tempted to say that Vince Lombardi he's an example of maybe somebody who is religiously very devout. He goes to Mass every Sunday. He goes to Mass every day. He prays the rosary. But are all those religious actions, are they transforming his soul? And is he living a holy life?
Right.
The way that the church explains that. I don't know. I'm not saying he's not holy, but we had lots of contradictions, and we are all bundles of contradictions. 50 cents.
Okay.
And I'll throw that one last penny into. Sorry, I'm mixing up my my measures of assessment. So I think I'd give 15 cents, and I think I'd give 10 cents, and I think I'd give 6 cents. So 15, 25, 31 cents, and another penny. I'll throw a penny on radical generosity side, so 32 cents.
Holy donor?
No. Great football coach? Yes.
Yeah.
Man to admire? I think so. I think he's a man to admire.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have to look at him with realistic lenses. There's a lot to admire there, but not a holy donor.
Ren?
So Thaddeus really stole a lot of the points I was going to make there. When I look at him, I see, like he said, look at faithfulness. He goes to Mass every day. It doesn't necessarily seem to inform his daily life, though. There's probably some Jesuit jokes that we can insert right here. Probably shouldn't. But I'll say, it's funny that we all look at this a little bit different way, how we score this. I say, okay, 3 out of the 10 coins for faithfulness, 3 for humility, 3 for generosity, and 1 bonus one. Kind of similar to Thaddeus, but I do just in the number of coins. So I'm going to say 2 out of the 3 for faithfulness.
Okay.
When I look at humility, that's I don't see a lot of it. That's probably the lowest for me, and it kind of ties in with the faithfulness too. The family life bothers me. When you look at how Marie talked about him at the end of her life, I think that speaks more to Marie than it does to Vince.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably gonna give him a 0 there. Honestly, just not a lot to inspire me humility wise. And then radical generosity, I wasn't feeling it until he talked about. At the end there, he talked about how he really didn't make a lot of money in his career, right? Until the very end when he started investing, started doing the speeches. And the fact that he gave away some of the money from his speeches, he get those $5,000 speaker's fees and give them away half the time. That did speak to me a little more because he hadn't made a lot of money in his life. So I'll give him 2 out of 3 for that. So, and then the 1 bonus coin, having grown up in Minnesota where apparently all Green Bay people move to get jobs, seeing how he inspired them to lead a life of maybe a little bit too much pride, I'll take away that coin. Like I said, I was going to be the devil's advocate for the season. You'd have to inspire me a little more to get that extra coin. So I think that's a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say holy donor.
All right. So now we've got Ren and Thaddeus with no's, Matt with a yes.
Matt, who plays the role of Simon Cowell.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Generally speaking,
Yeah.
yes, you are the...
I'm a little generous this week, I guess.
sounds like it. Looks like it. All right. Well, I will finish up. I think on the faithfulness, I do think that his coaching style, while gruff, it was informed by his faith in a lot of ways. And he... was a outwardly very faithful man. I think that he was striving for perfection in his own life and recognizing that he came up short time and time again. But we all are. So I'm going to go 8 for faithfulness, 8 out of 10. And I'm on Matt's scoring process here. Humility, I'm going to go the opposite of you guys. You guys, I understand your points, that, he was looking for power and he ran out. Remember, you just said that generally speaking, you think all Green Bay Packers are not humble, right? Is that? Yeah, that's what I read into that. I think that his focus on himself personally and on his teaching his teammates or teaching his players, it's all about the team, right? The Packers sweep was all about free will within discipline for the benefit of the team. He accepted the awards, Coach of the Year. I think that he felt personal rivalries with, some of the other coaches in the league. He wanted to beat them. So I don't think he was perfect in his humility, but I think he was pretty high in that it was about the team goal and instead of the individual. And I think that was informed again by his faith that, right, you minimize personal glory for the glory of God and the glory of mankind. So I'm going to go 7 on humility. And I think radical generosity, I think if he had more money, he would have given more away. I think if he had more time, if he had committed more time, I guess I should say, that he would have spent more time in service. I don't think that it was a lack of interest or desire to be supportive or generous. I think he just prioritized football above everything else. When he did have some more time, he gave away those speaker fees, right? Gosh, I know how much he cared for his players. It came out time and time again, and everything that I read and everything I watched, he loved his players and he inspired his players to love others. And so I think that is a form of generosity. So I'm going to go 6 on radical generosity. So 7, 8, 7, and 6, 21 and 30. I'm going to say yes, he's a holy donor. Not our holiest, but I say yes, he makes the cut. So I don't know. This was a crazy season. I liked it. I think that this is the first time we've been split.
Yeah, straight split decision.
Yeah, JFK was clear no. Catherine Drexel and everybody else was yes. So,
We're going to need some audience feedback to break the tie here.
Yeah, I think so. And how do they give us audience feedback?
On Instagram is probably the best, at Holy Donors. You can also go on our website, holydonors.com, and contact us through there.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for being part of the season. I loved that we can have kind of some spirited discussions around some of these really complex thoughts and a really complex man. So I'm glad we did this season. I think it was worthwhile, and hopefully we find some more subjects like this in the future.
Love it.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. See you next week, and we'll be here.
Can't wait.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Holy Donors, brought to you by Petrus Development in cooperation with Red Sea Catholic Radio and Back Row Media. Theme music by Tommy Kibb, Third Top Productions, graphics by 86 Creative. If you like us, leave us a review, share us with your friends, and check us out at holydonors.com and on Instagram at Holy Donors. Holy Donors, bringing you inspiring stories of radical generosity that have changed the world. Which football player wears the biggest helmet?
Which one?
The one with the biggest head. So 7, 8, 7, and 6, 31. Did I do my math right? I'm the history guy here.
22.
22. Not that.
No, 8, 15, 21.
Okay, 21.